Not gonna lie, this cult chant is a banger. Welcome back, horror fans. I'm Leo, and Bootube Breakdowns is here to save your scary movie night. Right off the bat, Lord of Misrule scores a 7.0 out of 10, landing it in our Pumpkin King category. But here's the thing. I've already had to give my soul to Galagog, Spirit of the Forest, just to get you this score. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly why this film earned its rating. If you disagree with my score at the end of the video, be sure to let me know how much you want to slap a child in the face. And then be sure to like, share, and subscribe about it in the comment section. A rural village with too much mud, too much history, and not enough light becomes a stage for Lord of Misrule, where faith and folklore collide under the banner of ritual. Rebecca Holland, a newly arrived vicar, tries to inject modern order into a community still bound to its pagan roots, only to watch her daughter vanish during the annual Harvest Festival. What follows is less a straightforward search and rescue and more a slow descent into rot as the town's cheery traditions peel back to reveal sacrifice, superstition, and a god that demands blood. The narrative thrives on atmosphere, cornfields that seem endless, hymns that curdle into chants, a town that closes ranks like colts when pressed too hard. The pacing draws power from repetition, cycling between Rebecca's faith-driven denials and the village's quiet insistence that this has all happened before and will happen again. Every clue feels borrowed from old woodcuts and half-burned sermons, reinforcing that she's not just fighting to find her child, but to outlast a cycle designed to crush outsiders. The story refuses to hand her an easy answer, dangling hope in one hand while shoving her face first into the mud with the other. By the end, the harvest isn't just crops, it's the people who never had a choice. Finally, folk horror done correctly. The idea of a family moving into a small town that turns out has a cult has been done before. There's nothing original there. The interesting thing about this version of the story is that our main protagonist, Rebecca, is a Catholic vicar, and the cult members are actually members of her church. Her daughter, Grace, was sacrificed as part of the Harvest Festival, but the truly dark aspect of this is how the sacrifice of Grace to Spirit Galagog was almost like a party or even a Renfest, totally harmless and fun. It all happened right under Grace's nose without nobody noticing. As she desperately tries to investigate what happened to her daughter, slowly but surely she finds out that everybody in town is in on it and has to fundamentally get into a spiritual battle with Jocelyn Adney to try and get her daughter back. This story isn't just people survive a cult. It goes even further up to the realm of centralized Catholicism versus old folk magic. There's a few aspects here and there that do interrupt the overarching themes of the story, such as her husband Henry. He's such a useless pussy that if he had no lines of dialogue at all, the movie would have happened without any significant change to the story. Honestly, if he would have been kidnapped in the beginning and revealed in the end to have been stowed away for the later sacrifice of fire, the movie probably would have been even more compelling. It's not perfect, but the story is so well done, I'm willing to give it a 9 out of 10. British movies are notoriously slow, and Lord of Misrule is no exception. It takes a little while for the movie to pick up, and the directions that the story took are a little choppy in their execution. The plotline with Derry Nash, for example, kind of popped in and out of focus as the story needed it to. And the scene under the stage, which is used to show some exposition, is kind of sloppy. And honestly, the vigil scene was not as impactful as a reveal as it could have been. If they would have combined the vigil scene and the fire ceremony scene, the whole thing would have been a much tighter story. Still, I was expecting this movie to be a total slogfest, and instead I got probably one of the best depictions of folk horror I've ever seen. It's still really slow, and still a little choppy, but it does better than average, so I'm willing to give the pacing a 6 out of 10. The movie itself is much more of a psychological thriller than an actual horror movie. Don't get me wrong, it's entertaining, but nobody is losing sleep over it. The cult aspect could have been much scarier, but the movie's fatal flaw is actually Jocelyn Abney. For cult movies to work, you need to create a sense of paranoia in which you're not sure who's a member of the cult and who's not. By creating a central villain, all our attention is focused on Abney as the main and only threat, so when the whole village is revealed to be part of the cult, you're more shocked than actually afraid. Spirit Galagog is also a missed opportunity. While Slavic Leshies are terrifying in their own right, this one is less of a direct threat and more of a looming / stalking horror that likes to stay in the background. When you get the final reveal of Galagog in the Black Barn, he just kind of watches. It's not really scary, it's barely creepy, and it's slow to its paranoia. It wasn't outright boring though, so for fear factor I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. There's a lot to love about this movie. The costume design, the background lore, and the sets were so beautifully put together. It really made me feel like I was part of a small town that stuck to traditional folk history. The little clues the movie left behind with missing or moving background art came off as if the screenwriters were playing with the audience, and it made the whole thing seem like a small play within the movie. The creature design of Galagog was also a visual treat once you got a good look at him, but by far the best part was the chant. It's so catchy, and I found myself singing along to it pretty close to the movie's end. I also love how much attention to detail they put in this film to encompass folklore and history of the town. There's a few hiccups here and there though. The sacrificial shrine we saw in Derry's house was there, but since it was in a dark room lit by moonlight, we barely got a good look at it, and for a second I thought it was actually Grace's disemboweled body. We didn't see enough of Galagog, and since he was CGI, I realized why. Getting more of him and creating a relatively cheap costume would have made him look so much better. Overall, I had a blast with this one, and I think you'll enjoy it too. I'll give the fun factor of this one an 8 out of 10. The ending had a rather interesting twist that I was not expecting. Normally in these kinds of movies you have one of 3 options. Either you get sacrificed by the cult, you become a member of the cult, or you escape but everyone else dies. However, Rebecca became the Lord of Misrule herself and saved her daughter, which was a very unexpected twist. She continues to play her part in the town as its vicar, but the sharp black nails let us know that she's accepted the demonic spirit into herself. There's not much to add here. We get no real happy ending, the spirit wins, and Rebecca had to sacrifice everything to save her daughter. It's the kind of ending where the main character loses themselves to save another, but by surviving and ultimately running the cult, the cost was much more than what she bargained for. It's a dark and brutal ending, masquerading as a happy ending, and I believe it's a clever way to do this considering that the Lord of Misrule is a jester putting on a show. And in many ways, I walked out of this one feeling like I just watched a play rather than a movie. I'm willing to give the ending on this one an 8 out of 10. So that's Bootube Breakdowns' take on Lord of Misrule. Averaging our scores gives this movie a 7.0 out of 10, which places it in our Pumpkin King category. Do you agree with my rating? Scream your score in the comments and tell me what horror flick I should gut next. If this saved your spooky vibes, smash that like, share it with your horror crew, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to Bootube Breakdowns for more killer verdicts. Keep it creepy, and I'll haunt you in the next review.